transistors and you have different.
This by yourself.
Yeah, because
Of course,
I mean it started prior to that. Let me go back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
Please.
When I was a little boy, in our house in Guyana, South America, we didn't have no money, right? My my mom was a nurse and my father was a dispenser. But you know, it's a South American country, not much money. And in our house, we had two electrical things. This is like the early 60s. We had a light bulb, a single light bulb, and we had a radio with a, and it was like a homemade radio with like a wooden thing and a turntable on one side. What we used to call a radiogram. You probably had it. Okay, I kind of worked out by the age of 6 that how the light bulb worked with like the electric heating up the filament and giving off a light, right? So I worked that out. But I couldn't quite work out on the radio, so I kept saying to my mom, what's the man in the radio? The man in the radio talking, yeah. And she kept saying, no, don't be silly, there's no man in the radio. But I wasn't convinced. And one day when she went to work, I took a screwdriver and went to the back of the radio and just, and it popped open. And the radio was made up of valves, you know, what the Americans call tubes. And the tubes were lit up, and then you see like a load of dust. And I thought, right, this thing. And she came back. She saw the radio at the back, and I got some licks. And she told me, she said, if you want to know about this, go to the library, get some books, and find out. I went to the library, get some books, and I saw some simple circuitry with just like a battery and like some resistors and a crystal radio. And I more or less built my first radio. And then after that, I came to England, where my father was, and then I discovered that we too, in England, he had some electronic interests, and he had loads of books telling him about amplifiers and circuitry.
Yeah, and
So-
shops to buy a parts.
Right.
Stuff, yeah.
That was perfect because in South London where we lived there was some shops just around the corner. And so I then took it to another level, and by that time I understood about different transistors and different op amps and different things. So after I left school I got some jobs, but by then, you know, I really wanted to do something with recording, you know. Well, you know, music, you can't put your finger on it. You just feel it, you know, and especially different styles, because being in Guyana, South America, we get like a lot of the Latin stuff. We get the cumbia, the samba, the salsa, and we get reggae. We get calypso, and we also get a lot of soul, a lot of American soul. So, and of course you get a pop like Beatles and Rolling Stones, and you know, and you take what you like, and you know, and some things affect you, and you know, like things like calypso and reggae, you get like the bass lines, and you find the bass lines affect you a certain way. And with like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, it was more head music, you know, like screaming guitars and stuff like that. So, you know, but like the South American music was more, you know, the drums and the bass led the way.
Yeah, the rhythm.
Yeah. That was the driving force. For the other stuff, it was emphasis. So, you know, I learned about the frequencies by then, and I thought we have this exhibition in London called the Ideal Home Exhibition with an electronic part, and I went there one year, and so yeah, I was at the Ideal Home Exhibition, and the guy who was talking to me, he looked like a few years older than me. He looked around like 25, and I was like 18, 20. And he was telling me how he had a 4-track at home, and and he was no, he said he had a 16-track. He had a new 16-track that was on half-inch, and how he was making music at home. And I was like,
What?
you mean this is possible?
Because there was no bedroom studios at the time.
No,
it was
no.
just regular one like Abbey Road and stuff.
You either have money and you tied into a record company and you spend a lot of money,
So you
or
thought it's possible to make it.
yeah, I was so encouraged by this, and then I put some money together, and my girlfriend bought me a 4-track machine,
Okay.
a TIAC, and then I started. I just every day that was my passion. That's all I wanted to do. And then I built my reverb, and I built my phaser, and I got another machine, that an old Akai machine with 3 heads, and that was my echo, that was my delay. Because what you do in that time, you take the output from the 3rd head, which was your replay head, and feed it back through the auxiliary into the input, and that way you control the delay. So yeah, then I got a job. Funny enough, I got a job at Suncraft. The guy who interviewed me, he also came from Guyana, and he was. I remember this like yesterday. He was a little bit sarcastic. He said, "So you call yourself a technician?" I said, "Yes." He said, "All right." And he showed me a room that was like, maybe quarter the size of this room. And in this room was stacks and stacks of PCBs, printed circuit boards. Stacks, loads. It must have had about 500 boards. He said, "Look, you see all these boards?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "They don't work. They need fixing."
Oh, okay.
Right. And he said, "Most people try to fix them, couldn't fix them."
So it was a challenge.
Yeah, he said, "Today's Monday. If by Friday you could fix 10 of them." Luckily only 10. Yeah, he said, if you could do that, you get a job. It took me about a day to fix the first one, then I got to understand it. And by the end of the week, I'd done about 20. Yeah, so I got a job, and one of the guys who was instructing me came and he said, "Slow down, because if you do too much, you will not." Yeah. So I was with Suncraft, and I talked to them. I said, "Listen, I want to start a studio," and they said, "Well, look, if you want to start, there's loads of things that we got that we just need to get rid of." And they give me a load of stuff that a lot wasn't working. 1 minute. Okay, I start with something. This is a track I did in my front room studio. It wasn't 4-track, it was 16-track, but I think it's kind of known. This was recorded in 81,
Okay.
1981, and by then I'd upgraded the studio from 4-track to 16-track. And some of the guys I met at that pub in Brixton, they're playing on it. In fact, they became like my main
Fascinant, isn't it?
No, it was called Acquism. They were called Acquism, yeah. And well, they're more or less the same as Fasimbas, you know.
Yeah.
It's the same musicians. Depends on who you play for, you know. Yeah. And this was like real, obviously real piano, upright piano. And the drummer is a guy called Horseman, who I still work with.
Yeah, yeah.
The piano drum. The keyboard is a guy called Sergeant Pepper. The percussion is a guy called Josh Acker, you know, he plays sound system. The bass plays a guy called Bernard. And you know, for us, as like black teenagers in the 70s, I mean, you didn't see so many black people on TV, you know, and you definitely didn't have programs talking about your roots and your origin. Yeah, and especially about Africa. So it was like a big step, you know, and I can't remember how long the series, how many weeks it was, but everyone used to make sure that they go home to watch Roots, you know, and it was like, okay, and you see how they were captured, how like Kunta Kinte was captured on the coast, and how he went into first this holding bay that held black people, and then the ship would come to take them. First it would capture them running around, and you saw when he was like free and happy and running around, and then he was captured and, you know, chained, and then they took him on the boat to America, and then they touched on, yeah, as a slave, you know. So that was recorded in 1981, like I said. Yeah. Kunta Kinte.